Charleston, South Carolina, 1989. 24-year-old young mother Eni Tahan disappeared without a trace. The man she lived with claimed that Eni had left him and their newborn daughter by simply getting into a car and driving away. The search for the missing woman lasted a long 4 years. Eni Tahan was born on May 1, 1965, and was raised by her mother. The lively girl loved dancing, partying, and simply enjoying life. Her cherished dream had always been to have a large, close-knit family. Becoming a mother was Eni's main goal. She gave birth to her firstborn, Jamie, at 18, and just a year later, she had her second son, Sean. At 20, Eni became a mother for the third time, giving life to her daughter Shine. Unfortunately, the children's father abandoned them immediately after the birth of the girl, refusing to take any part in raising the kids, and completely withdrawing himself. Eni was left alone with the children in a rented apartment in Maine. When her younger daughter Shine turned 6 months old in 1987, 22-year-old Eni met a new man. He turned out to be 32-year-old Petty Officer Michael Pallon, who was serving then on the aircraft carrier, Bramby, which once docked at the port of Portland, Maine. It was there on the embankment that Michael met young Eni, who immediately caught his eye. Pallon himself was originally from Charleston, South Carolina. Everyone had the highest opinion of him. Michael worked on the ship as a computer operator, participated in combat operations, and even had several service awards. Eni was immensely proud of her beloved sailor and fell head over heels in love with him. She confessed to a close friend that she had finally met a worthy man, and felt truly happy. After a few months of dating, Eni and Michael decided to live together. Pallon moved into Eni's apartment in Maine, where they began living together with Eni's 2 sons and daughter from previous relationships. But literally right after that, a fire broke out in their home. Eni was out running errands at the time. Only Michael and the children were at home. The man and the older sons Jamie and Sean managed to escape from the fire. But the younger daughter Shine, who couldn't even walk yet, remained inside. When Eni returned and saw what had happened, she rushed into the burning apartment to save the child, but the neighbors held the woman back, not letting her do it. Shine died in the fire. The grief of loss that Eni had to endure cannot be compared to anything. The woman admitted that from now on, there would be a huge black hole in her heart. While investigating the fire case, police experts could not come to an agreement on the cause of the ignition. Although the fire was called highly suspicious, no one was ever held responsible. After this tragedy, Eni and her sons moved to her mother's house in Portland. Michael fully immersed himself in work and lived in the barracks. And just a few months later, a new fire broke out, this time near Eni's mother's house. This time, an unknown person set fire to a shed in the backyard. The source of the fire was found quickly. Among the ashes, investigators found a lighter engraved with Bramby, the name of the ship on which Michael Pallon served. So he immediately became the main suspect in the arson, but proving the guilt of Eni's beloved was impossible for the police due to lack of evidence. After the second fire incident, the Maine Child Protective Services concluded that Eni was endangering her sons, and they should be taken away from their mother. The boys were placed under the supervision of the Department of Social Welfare and Foster Care. Eni desperately fought for the return of Jamie and Sean, but to no avail. And the woman's heart was simply torn apart by the impossibility of being with her children. Meanwhile, Michael Pallon's ship returned to the port of Charleston, South Carolina. The man settled there in a rented apartment and contacted Eni again. The woman agreed to resume the relationship, and soon she even moved to Michael's place in Goose Creek, a suburb of Charleston. There, the couple began living together, now just the two of them. But after some time, Eni had to endure another shock. In Michael's apartment, she accidentally came across his photo, where the man had a wedding ring on his finger. Eni instantly realized that Pallon was married. When Michael returned home, she asked him about the photograph. The man confessed that he had indeed been married but had long been divorced. He did not hide the fact that his ex-wife Donna Bris lived with their 3 children in Pallon's mother's house in Savannah, Georgia. Michael assured his beloved that everything between him and his ex-wife had been over for a long time. After this confession, Eni wanted to leave Michael but changed her mind. She still considered him the perfect man with whom she could create a strong family and start with a clean slate. However, after a few months of living together, Eni began to annoy Pallon. He treated her more and more rudely, and the woman again decided to return to her mother. But suddenly Eni found out that she was pregnant. Now there could be no question of leaving Michael. The expectant mother was immensely happy to be in such a special condition again. In October 1989, a month before disappearing without a trace, Eni Tahan became a mother for the 4th time. She gave birth to a daughter, Jade. The woman understood that the newborn could never replace her deceased daughter, but the baby's arrival still slightly eased the pain of loss that still tore at the mother's heart. A month passed after giving birth, and Michael began treating Eni even worse. He disparagingly called her names and humiliated her, so one day, the anguished woman shared with a friend her fears that even if she ran away from home, Pallon would still find her and not leave her alone. By that time, the man was already keeping Eni locked up in the apartment, forbidding her to go anywhere while he was at work. Moreover, Michael would take the phone with him, pulling it out of the socket and putting it in his briefcase. The live-in partner's behavior frightened Eni. 2 days before disappearing, the woman panicked and called her closest friend Kathy Fringe and told her that she had confessed to Pallon her intentions to leave him. But Michael replied that their daughter Jade would stay with him, and Eni would never see her again. The unhappy mother screamed and cried into the receiver, begging her friend to come immediately and take her together with the child. But busy Kathy said she could not come right now. Instead, the girl wired Eni money for a bus ticket so that she could escape and return to her native Portland. At that, the conversation between the 2 friends ended, and neither of them even suspected that this would be their last talk. 2 days passed, and on November 7, 1989, Kathy Fringe dialed Eni's number, but she did not answer. And a few days later, Michael Pallon himself called the girl. The man informed her that back on November 6, Eni had broken up with him, packed her things, and left for an unknown destination. Kathy waited for her friend to contact her soon from a new address. But 2 weeks passed. November 24th came, Thanksgiving Day. And Eni still had not gotten in touch for 20 days now. Fringe called all their mutual friends and acquaintances, but no one knew anything about the fate of the missing woman. Then the frightened girl went to the police with a statement about the disappearance of 24-year-old Eni Tahan. But at the station, Kathy was told that they had no right to accept a statement from a friend since she was not a blood relative of the missing person. Several months passed, and there was still no news about Eni Tahan. Kathy managed to find the phone number of Michael, Pallon's mother. Calling the woman, the girl learned that Eni's younger daughter, Jade, was currently with her. The friend instantly realized something terrible had happened, because she knew that Eni would never leave her daughter to fend for herself under any circumstances. Soon Michael Pallon was transferred to serve at the Pearl Harbor Naval Base in Hawaii. The man was not at all interested in where the mother of his child had gone and did not even think to contact the police. Only a few months after Eni Tahan's disappearance, when her mother officially filed a statement, the search for the young woman finally began. The first person the officers interrogated was the missing woman's live-in partner, Michael Pallon. The man immediately found himself in the status of the main suspect. Michael said that he woke up on the morning of November 6th and found that Eni had left the house, leaving their daughter with him. According to Pallon, the previous evening, the woman had confessed that she wanted a divorce. The man did not look for her, deciding that their relationship was over and there was no point in continuing communication. Michael insisted that he did not know about Eni's disappearance and that she was not in contact with her loved ones. The police searched the couple's rented apartment but found no traces, evidence, or suspicious items. It seemed that the case of Eni Tahan's disappearance had reached a dead end. For some reason, a large-scale search for the young woman never even began. No one knew where Eni might be, whether she was alive, or what motives her alleged kidnapper had. The only thing known for certain was that the missing woman was last seen by her live-in partner. For long years passed, during which no one heard or saw anything about Eni. Kathy Fringe remained the only one who actively searched for her friend and cooperated with the investigation. The girl spent about $16,000 on phone calls and hired a private detective, having no intention of giving up. Fringe turned to various organizations that could somehow help find out more about Michael Pallon. According to Kathy herself, this man was extremely angry and not to be trusted. The girl was terribly afraid of Michael and understood, if her cooperation with the police became known to him, Pallon was quite capable of harming her. In 1993, the case of Eni Tahan's disappearance finally got off the ground. This happened when the investigation was transferred to the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. The service employees took up the case actually from scratch. They tracked down Michael Pallon at the Pearl Harbor base in the Hawaiian Islands. Naval police agents tried to talk to the man about Eni Tahan's disappearance, but he stated that he would only communicate in the presence of his lawyer. And later, he refused to cooperate with the investigation altogether. Having gathered all the available information about the missing woman, the Naval Police representatives turned to the South Carolina Department of Law Enforcement with a request to notify them of possible matches with discovered unidentified bodies. The main distinguishing feature of the missing Eni was that the woman had given birth to a child just a month before her disappearance. The South Carolina police reported, in their archives, there was a case about an unidentified deceased woman who had given birth just a month before her death. Law enforcement sent a portrait of this person. Upon seeing it, the naval police agents were stunned, realizing that they had apparently found Eni Tahan, and that the woman had long been murdered. Eni's body was found on the side of the highway in Jasper County, South Carolina, about 160 kilometers from the apartment where the woman lived with Michael. The crime scene photos looked eerie. The agents admitted that they had never seen such a horrific death. Eni's face was smashed, crushed almost to ear level. In terms of brutality, this murder simply did not fit in one's head. The woman's skull was broken into 124 fragments, the assembly of which took about 500 hours. As it turned out, Eni's body was stuffed into a military bag, doused with gasoline, and set on fire. The burning bag was found at 6 a.m. on November 7, 1989. This happened at about the same time when Eni's friend Kathy Fringe reported that she had stopped answering her calls. Comparing the dental records of the missing Eni Tahan and the discovered unidentified woman, the agents realized that they were completely identical. Michael Pallon instantly turned into the main suspect in the murder of a young female. The naval police representatives developed a scrupulous plan of investigative actions. First of all, they studied Pallon's bank transactions and found out that on the day of Eni's disappearance, Michael used his credit cards. The man purchased something 40 kilometers south of the place where the fire-ravaged body was later found. After analyzing the suspect's phone calls, the investigators learned that on the morning of November 6, he called Savannah twice to his mother's house. The first call came at 4:35 a.m., the second at 5:17 a.m. The agent suspected that Pallon could have killed Eni right in the apartment, then taken the corpse to the highway and burned it. The investigators decided to find his ex-wife Donna Bris and talk to her. At the time of Eni's death, this woman was still officially married to Michael Pallon and lived in his mother's house in Savannah. As it turned out, Donna Bris divorced her husband and left Savannah shortly after Eni's disappearance. Over the next few years, she lived in different states, changing her place of residence time after time. It seemed as if the woman was running from someone or something. The agents found out that Pallon's ex-wife currently resided in Miami, Florida. In the summer of 1995, almost 6 years after the murder of Eni Tahan, the investigators tracked down Donna Bris, the former wife of Michael Pallon. As it turned out, the woman was engaged in spiritual practices and made a living from it. She had started her healing activities back in 1987. She worked as a masseuse, taught Tai Chi, and practiced energy healing. The operatives visited Donna Bris at work and informed her that they had to talk to her about Eni Tahan's disappearance. The woman inquired how much time their conversation would take, admitting that she was hungry, and if the talk dragged on, she wouldn't mind grabbing a bite to eat. Such a question somewhat puzzled the agents. They thought that when they arrived and said they needed to talk to Donna Bris about Eni Tahan, she would turn pale, her lips would tremble, and she would barely restrain her emotions. But nothing of the sort happened. Donna calmly had lunch and went to talk with the naval police representatives. Their conversation turned into a real interrogation and lasted a whole 10 hours. Donna Bris's story matched Michael Pallon's testimony to the smallest details. The woman reported that when she arrived at the apartment, he told her that his mistress had left him and gone away, and now he would have to raise their daughter on his own. However, when the agents began asking leading questions about the time of Donna's arrival at Michael's home, the woman kept getting confused, and then she suddenly fell silent, lowered her eyes, and said she wanted to tell the truth. During her monologue, Donna Bris was as cold as ice. She did not shed a single tear but simply spilled out everything she knew and had been silent about for 6 long years. Donna said that on that early morning, Michael called her in Savannah and insisted that she urgently come to his apartment in Charleston. The woman got into her car and rushed to her husband. Entering the dwelling, she immediately saw Eni Tahan's lifeless body on the floor. The deceased lay in the room, face down. Michael ordered Donna to go to the bedroom and get acquainted with his daughter there. At that time, Mike and Donna were still legally married and had 3 children together. Right there, in the apartment, Pallon confessed to his wife that he had had an affair with Eni. He assured that there was nothing serious between them. But as a result of this infatuation on the side, a daughter appeared. The man asked his wife for help, begging her to take the child and help raise her. As Donna recounted, Michael did not want to fight Eni for custody. So he planned the murder, choosing the easier path for himself. Late at night on November 5 to 6, 1989, Mike and Eni went to bed. After when the woman fell asleep, Pallon grabbed a tire iron and began pounding her on the head. Their tiny daughter Jade was lying next to her mother, in bed the whole time. Blow after blow, Michael continued to batter Eni. But she turned out to be surprisingly tenacious and would not lose consciousness. But in the end, from the injuries inflicted by her partner, the woman died right in bed. Michael called his wife and ordered her to come immediately. After that, he stuffed Eni's body into an army bag and carried it to the trunk of his car. A canister of gasoline was also there. Putting his wife and daughter in the back seat, the man set off on a long journey. After driving about 160 kilometers, the couple chose a place that seemed most secluded to them and stopped on the side of the road. Michael took the bag with Eni's body out of the trunk, doused it thoroughly with gasoline, and struck a match. Then he immediately returned to the car and drove his wife and daughter back to Savannah, to his mother's house. Donna Bris's confession was a real breakthrough in the investigation, and one of the very first substantial pieces of evidence the agents received since finding Eni's mutilated corpse. The officers asked Donna to call her ex-husband in their presence and talk to him about Eni Tahan's murder. The woman agreed. She dialed Michael's number and said she wanted to seriously talk to him because she had found out that the missing Eni had been found dead and identified. In response, Pallon stated, "No, they didn't do that." For the agents, this was a signal that Donna was telling them the truth. Then the woman informed her ex-husband that blood had been found in his apartment. And now the naval police suspected them of murder. "You should come up with some explanation for this blood in the dwelling," Donna advised. "Okay, we need to act, we have to get our thoughts together and think of something," Michael replied. Although during the phone conversation Pallon did not blurt out a confession, it was obvious that he perfectly understood what his former wife was talking about and did not even ask unnecessary questions. No objections. There was no doubt that Eni Tahan had indeed been murdered in his apartment. At the end of the conversation, Michael warned Donna to be cautious and not to blab too much over the phone. "You and I are in this together, and we'll deal with it," he assured her. The investigators went with Donna Bris to the crime scene, hoping to find evidence that might have gone unnoticed. Before leaving, the woman's appearance was altered so that no one would guess about her cooperation with law enforcement. In the apartment, Donna described and demonstrated in the smallest detail the position in which Eni's corpse lay and what happened next. She pointed to the spot where there was a huge bloodstain on the wall, baseboard, carpet, and concrete floor underneath. Since Michael had moved out of this rented dwelling, the owners had changed and cleaned the carpet several times. So it was not surprising that no traces remained on it. But when the police sprayed a special solution on the concrete floor, a large purple stain appeared, indicating the presence of blood traces. And this stain was located exactly where, according to Donna, the mutilated Eni lay. The blood had literally soaked into the concrete. However, the naval police could not irrefutably prove that the traces they found were actually blood. Therefore, the agents continued to look for additional physical evidence. Donna recalled that next to the bed on which Eni was killed, there used to be a TV stand. After the murder, Michael told his wife that the TV was heavily spattered with blood and needed to be thoroughly washed. And some time after the crime, Pallon got rid of this TV. His wife Donna suggested that the man had probably sold the appliance, since he was a terrible miser and could not simply throw a working TV into the garbage. The search for the TV resembled looking for a needle not just in a haystack, but in an entire hay barn. The operatives realized they had to make every effort to find that ill-fated appliance. Meanwhile, Michael Pallon found out that he was being watched by the naval police, because after the call from his ex-wife, the man became wary and quickly discovered the tale. The agents were afraid that he would flee, or even worse, intimidate witnesses or even cause someone serious harm. One day during surveillance of Michael Pallon, the suspect tried to take to his heels, but the police caught up with him. On October 11, 1995, the man was arrested. And while Michael was in military prison on suspicion of murder, naval police agents tracked down and interrogated everyone who lived in November 1989 in the apartment complex where the crime took place. 3 months later, the operatives found a neighbor who reported that he had once bought a TV from Michael, and it was still standing in his home and working great. The police confiscated the appliance and sent it to the FBI lab for examination, during which 11 spots of blood belonging to Eni Tahan were found on the casing. By that time, Pallon's lawyers had stated that their client was ready to confess to the crime in exchange for the cancellation of the death sentence. The prosecutor was extremely outraged by this, but military law required the conclusion of such a deal. At the trial, Michael Pallon fully admitted his guilt, and his face remained almost impassive, and his speech rather resembled the dispassionate reading of a shopping list. There was not even a hint of remorse or compassion in the defendant's words. Michael Pallon was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment with the right to parole. After 30 years, the criminal was kicked out of the Navy in disgrace. Despite the fact that Pallon's ex-wife Donna Bris knew about her husband's crime and kept silent for 6 long years, she managed to avoid punishment, as the woman made an important confession to the naval police officers. Eni's sons and daughter are aware of what really happened to their mother and now know that she did not abandon them. Eni and Michael's daughter Jade grew up to be a beautiful woman, was raised by the Pallon family, and never communicated with her biological father. In 2013, having served only 17 years in prison, Michael Pallon was released on parole for good behavior. Today, no one knows exactly where this man is, but anyone who finds themselves near him should be on guard. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Until next time, friends.